All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Three Up, Three Down. You got DJ here with you today. Stu is flying currently with his basketball team. So Stu gone. You got me and Seth with you hanging out today. We're wrapping up our current segment or series on virtual training. Couple quick announcements before we do dive in here. First one, tomorrow is the deadline for the international tournament requests. So if you're interested in doing that, make sure that you get into the umpire registry and get those request forms filled out. And then as we've been doing, we've been talking about making sure that you fill out that Little League umpire registry survey as well. Little League just trying to get feedback from us and figuring out what we as umpires would like. So today we're going to be talking and discussing about how to engage with the virtual learner. We'll talk about designing and we'll recap essentially designing efficient and effective format from last week. And Seth is going to take us through that recap. And then we're going to talk about catering to the three different learning styles that we have, the see, the hear, the do. And lastly, we're going to be talking about how we can apply those resources using those different learning styles. So Seth, do you have anything that you'd like to add or anything like that?
Negative. If we got everything, we're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, guys, season 8 overview. We've just been talking about training today's learner. We've been going through the virtual opportunities and things like that we have throughout the month of November. Next week, November 28th, we're going to take next week off. Spend time, taking advantage of the Thanksgiving holiday and that weekend. And then back December, we're going to be talking about how to take advantage of getting everybody back together for in-person clinics. So getting hands-on, how to have that collaborative inquiry together, drills and all those different types of things as we talk about clinics and we get ready to get back into clinic and school season as we hit January, February, March of 2022. Again, those tournament requests are due. Tomorrow is the deadline. Little League umpire registry survey, feedback and stuff like that for the 2022 clinics, and then upcoming training opportunities. Those clinics in the Western region, we'll make sure that we get those listed in the description on the YouTube for the replay links. As Seth takes over here, I'm going to go ahead and post those links one last time in our chat for the international tournament request and the Little League umpire registry survey. Seth, take it away.
All right, guys. So let's get a little recap going of what we talked about last week. So last week we talked about, how to cater to today's learner, how to design a virtual format clinic, and then some of the nuances of, what exactly can we do to help with not only the flow and the fluidity of the session, but also maximizing the yield of learning opportunity that you can get out of the session. So remember, today's learners, we have this hear, see, do model that we talk about where, the learner wants to hear the thing, the learner wants to see the thing being done, and then the learner wants to do the thing. And then we also talked about the different kinds of learners, the visual learners, the hands-on learners, the ones that really want to get in and get in on the activity as fast as they can because they learn by doing it. Then we have the collaborative inquiry learners, the ones that are learn more when you have like a pod style discussion. So these are the kinds of ones where you have like panels where you'll have like a Q&A panel and sort of think about the topic and come up with ways to improve on the topic together. Then you have the agency. This is the one that they kind of like to take learning into their own hands for the most part, and then really just come to you with, hey, I have this question. How do I get this done? So knowing, when you have a meeting, knowing who is what learning style and kind of how to read the room on that, you'll get more out of your virtual sessions. Remember, today's learner also needs to be convinced through objective evidence. The burden of proof is not on the student to just believe what we have to say. The burden of proof is on us as the instructor to say, hey, this is useful because of X, Y, and Z. Let me show you why it's useful. Just like a couple weeks ago when we talked about, kind of changing the angle distance plays at first base. We can tell you, hey, it's probably better to take plays from 120-ish degrees rather than 90 degrees. But if we don't give you any reason to do it, why should you believe us? So that's why we backed it up with the film evidence. And then remember, they also have shorter attention spans. So, having a 2-hour virtual session is probably not practical in today's, learning age. We want to try to get that to 30 to 45 minutes, like we talked about last week. And then going to the format, we want to have a simple and predictable format, right? If you look at our 3 Up, 3 Down archive, our 3 Up, 3 Down archive is the same every meeting we have. And this simple format is essentially what we follow, right? So if you look at our episodes, we have welcome announcements and an overview of what we're going to do for the session and what we hope to give you guys for the session. Then when you present your content, you want to have 3 good points. These are the 3 anchoring points that you want to relay to your learners. So these are the 3 messages that you want to get out. Then once you get through those, you still go to a Q&A time. This is for your audience to come and say, hey, I have these questions. Let me ask them. We can get some answers. And then you go for closing and reminders. Again, if you look at our episodes of 3 Up, 3 Down, they follow the skeleton to a T. So if you need help modeling, just look at an episode of 3 Up, 3 Down here. Going on to the next one. So then we talked about formatting an effective virtual session. So I mentioned earlier, 30 to 45 minutes is our virtual space. That's about how much time we want to spend in our virtual meetings. And this needs to allow for everything. So the announcements, the Q&A time, breakout rooms, if you're going to have those, you need to allow for your entire session into that 30 to 45 minute window. Break things down into clusters of 3. If you look at our episodes of 3 Up, 3 Down, again, not to sort of toot our own horns, but every title slide of our 3 Up, 3 Down episodes has 3 things that we want to talk about. So not only do we have our 3 major topics that we want to get to, but you also want to kind of break those down into little segments of 3, whereas, hey, let's present the material. This is how we get to the material. This is, the end goal of the material. And you want to spend about 8 to 12 minutes per segmented topic on this. That will help you stay within that 30 to 45 minute window. And then you want to continue to reiterate this information before, during, and after the session. So before the session, meaning when you get to the next session, you want to recap what we're doing right now. Recap what you did the last time. Then during the session, you want to talk about how what you talked about last time coincides with what you're talking about today. And then after the session, continue to reiterate. Just say, hey, this is why it's good. This is why it's good. That's how we retain things in today's world, is just continued, essentially, thought about it. And then we talked about setting ground rules for the session. So remember, you got to have ground rules. This will help you stay formatted, stay focused, and help you stay in that 30 to 45 minute window. You want to talk to your participants about whether you're going to have it muted or unmuted. And then if you want the camera on or off, just in case, if you have a ton of people in your room, you may want to have everybody have the cameras off, so that way there's minimal visual distractions. Also, it's a great time to stay muted if, you have a lot of people. And if it's a smaller session like we have tonight, potentially you just say, hey, you know what, we're going to go with a more collaborative, inquiry-based, learning style tonight. We can unmute. Let's just talk through things. So you kind of got to read the room there. But it's always good to have your participants, know going into the meeting what you're expecting. How are you going to use the chat? And also, who are you going to have monitor that chat? Are you going to use the chat for just questions? Say, hey, if you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat. Are you going to use the chat for, just comments of, hey, I like this. This is what I did, how I use this, blah, blah, blah. And then also, are you going to, use it to relay links? We use it really for all 3 here on 3 Up, 3 Down. We ask questions, we have people comment, and then, DJ always drops the links for our relative information at the beginning of each session. And then, are you going to pause for a live Q&A after each section of your meeting, or are you just going to go all the way through and then hit a Q&A at the end? And remember, if you're going to pause after each segment, you have to build that time into that 30 to 45 minute window. And then how are your participants going to interact with each other? Typically the chat's a great way to do that. Or are you going to use breakout rooms? Think about how your participants are going to talk to each other, because they're ultimately the best teachers, is them collaborating with each other on the material that you're presenting. So are you just going to let them talk in the chat, or are you going to do breakout rooms at some point, etc.? All things you need to think about when you're formatting a lesson here. And I think that's it for all we talked about last week. DJ, you got anything else on that?
No, great recap there. Obviously, the one thing, that's really, really important, and kind of the second piece of tonight's, discussion is catering to the three learning styles that there are. We have the hear, the see, the do. As we teach, we teach the hear, see, do, as tell, show, do. So taking time and getting to know your people. I've worked in places where literally taking a learning style quiz, because you can answer certain questions and understand, different types of people learn different ways. A lot of people might get a whole bunch out of what we do at 3 Up 3 Down. And, I hear a lot of people will put it in their car and just drive and listen to it, because they don't necessarily need the visuals. They can hear everything and process everything that's going on. That doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Seeing is one as well. The use of the different things that we use, whether it's video analysis, whether it's just simply seeing each other here in the chat layout, in the Zoom call, and then doing. And I think in the virtual world, and we'll kind of tackle the do side of things, and how we can engage on the virtual side of do. I think do obviously is the most challenging, probably, on the virtual side of things. Do is a lot of mental reps, and whatnot, when it comes to things that are being presented on the virtual world. It can be difficult, but it is able to be done. I'm going to put you on the spot. Jose, did MILB do anything with virtual stuff? I'm assuming over the last 20 months, any input on the tell, show, do side of things, or putting clinics together from your expertise and your side of things?
The only virtual thing we did was, normally at spring training, we call it a road show. We spend the whole day in meetings. Everyone talks about different things: security, social media, the protocols for the upcoming season, and points of emphasis, rule changes, things like that. And we did that this year on Zoom, and it was the longest day of my life. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours. And I mean, there's no way you can cram all that information to 30, 45 minutes like we are. But definitely, I work in a high school right now, every day, and I coach hockey at the high school level too. And I think that 30 to 45 minutes is perfect. Just kind of you got to hit the main points, get the important information that's out, stay off of tangents, which is really hard for us as umpires. No storytelling, which is also really hard for us as umpires. And then, always ask for questions at the end, or for them to kind of regurgitate the information, because I think that's really key on if comprehending as the instructor, if they're grasping the information that you're presenting. But yeah, I know minor league baseball, major league baseball, we had meetings once a month on Fridays, in the morning, and they were about an hour long, which wasn't bad for us. And they just showed a lot of plays, and then we would go over weird rulings, and things like that. It was pretty informative. It was really good. And then we finished the season with like a Q&A one, which was kind of cool too. But it was early Friday morning. So yeah.
I'm sure that the early call, especially if you have a late game on Thursday night, is probably not the best.
Yeah.
But a huge takeaway there is, having questions and asking questions. I think making sure that your learners are comprehending. I think that's a really good way in the moment to make sure that the people that you're teaching do understand exactly the stuff that you're putting out there. And I think that applies to in-person clinics, which obviously we'll dive into in December. But it's going to be huge in the virtual world as well. I think we get a lot out of, if you've ever participated in a 3 up, 3 down session, I get a lot out of, sometimes just as much out of the post game after we stop recording and we just kind of hang out a little bit and talk about different scenarios and whatnot. So anything that you can do, whether it's asking questions in the moment, something as simple as, does anybody have anything to add, or does anybody have any questions, to having pre-written, pre-thought out questions that you can ask. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Anything that you can do to try and drive engagement and drive and knowledge and understanding of what's going on. So great call out there. Thank you, Jose, for being put on the spot. I appreciate it. Diving into the last little bit of our presentation here tonight, just getting right back in. I lost my spot. I'm sorry, guys. There we go. So we're going to be talking about how do we use and how do we effectively manage those tools to help us engage with our virtual learners. And we talk about, well, what are those? Again, just recapping those 3 learning styles: the tell, show, do, or the hear, see, do. And I think, the first one, obviously, if you couldn't tell, we utilize a lot of PowerPoint. And, as far as learning styles and which learning style that accommodates, the learning style that it accommodates would obviously be seeing, probably the most, and then hearing after that, but the hear, see learning style. And, we can utilize, obviously, when we're speaking over it, that's the hearing portion. And then the seeing, obviously the PowerPoint is right there in front of us, and it's easy to be seen and easy to understand. So making sure that you have an effective PowerPoint layout is not over dramatic or too much going on, utilizing bullet points. As you can see on our PowerPoints, we have it to where each slide, then every time each line has its own click. You don't want to give away too much information all at one time. You want to make sure that people are following along in sort of a method of rhythm with you as the instructor. PowerPoint is primarily used to present or outline. It doesn't have to be anything grandiose by any means, but making sure that the base level information is put out there, because PowerPoint is, this is the ground level of that information and learning, especially the hearing and seeing. Doing is really where we apply things. So hearing and seeing, most learners learn the best with hear or see. Do is kind of lower on that learning spectrum. Put a little play on words. You want to make sure that you're using those tools and resources responsibly. You want to put the power in PowerPoint. And what we mean by that is we want to make sure that we're using it what it's for. We're able to present questions that stimulate and engage the learner's mind. That's huge. And then there's a secondary goal. We want to use them to provide opportunities for discussion. So whether that's questions that we take into a breakout, questions that we use into a poll or something like that, but definitely putting the power into PowerPoint and allowing it to be used as effectively as possible. Sometimes we think of PowerPoint, we might think it's boring or something like that, but I think that leveraging PowerPoint for what it has to offer from a teaching and learning point of view is huge. The next thing is what visuals. Obviously, PowerPoint itself is a visual, but what can we do on the visual side of things? Well, the first question, as the last one, is, which learning style does visuals, accommodate? And it's obviously the hear and the see. See is the biggest one. But when we start to get into video clips and things of that nature, it becomes a do. And that's the mental processing. We've talked a lot about mental reps, and take those mental reps. I know Jose has talked in the past, we've talked in the past in 3 Up, 3 Down when we discuss, wedge theory at different bases and stuff like that. Even if you don't have a play, take those steps, have efficient steps. Every single rep, whether there's a play or not, is a mental rep to help you get better and get stronger. And video clips is the exact same thing for us. So how do those mental reps work? On the field, off the field, just talked about it. On the field, stepping them out, whether you have a play or not. Off the field, watching the clips either of yourself or our, friends in MLB or whatever the case may be, figuring out where they're standing, why they're standing there. That's kind of how Seth alluded to earlier with taking the plays just off of the line at first base and kind of moving on from the 90-degree philosophy, and realizing that, okay, there's something going on here. And we started to put in work on that side as far as, those reps are concerned. And we haven't even taken a pitch or a play like that yet. It's all been done virtually. Find those clips. That's obviously, a huge thing. How do you find them? I think, social media is the biggest tool there for us, whether you're using YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. If you're interested and maybe you missed last week's episode, I would encourage you to go check out last week's episode. Stu jumped in and gave us some real good examples of how to save videos. You can create your own saved videos on Facebook. If you see anything, you just click and save and it goes to its own collection. YouTube, you can create your own playlists. Twitter has a very similar feature to Facebook. So take advantage of those social medias. If Facebook, if you don't use Facebook, YouTube, anybody can use YouTube. You just need an email account, really. And it's really, really simple to save your own playlists and use those as effective tools. And making sure that if you find those things, you either save them or you clip them. If you're unaware, there's 3 different ways that you can clip video. The most popular that, that saving it, and then what do we call it? Screen grab or screen record. You can on a Mac or an iPhone, you can screen record and save it straight to a video. On a Mac, you can go into QuickTime Player and go to File, New Screen Recording, and start screen recording right there. A lot of the clips that we assemble and we put through on 3 Up 3 Down, we utilize iMovie. Any Mac, I think, purchased after 2013, I think, or 2015 comes with iMovie for free. And it's a really good base level video editing software. And then there are screen recording options on PC, something to do with Shift Alternate 5 or something like that. Seth actually might know better than I do on the screen recording stuff when it comes to PC, but there are different options. And then making sure that you keep it organized. Disclaimer, video is a storage hog, so make sure that you have storage as well. But that is that's the visual side of things, and taking advantage of visuals, keeping a good collection of videos and stuff like that. And the cool thing is you can store those clips and things that you see on those playlists without taking up your storage. It's just when you want to go ahead and download and create a presentation or something like that, you have to worry about that. Seth, do you have anything to add on the PowerPoint side of things or visuals before we move into the do side?
Yeah, I don't know the shortcut for Windows off the top of my head for screen recording. Typically what I do is I get a third party screen recording application. There are tons out there, and there are a lot of good ones for free that you can use to record your screen. And then the other thing I was going to say was YouTube's a fantastic free, basically storage facility for all these clips, right? So you can download these clips or screen record these clips, and then you can upload them to YouTube as a private unlisted video just that you can view. And then so it's basically unlimited cloud storage, right? You just save them as individual videos. And then, like DJ said, once you want to assimilate them into, some sort of montage, you can download them from there, and then put them in a video editing software, edit them all together, and then you can reload that back up to YouTube and get rid of it off your computer. And it's essentially unlimited cloud storage. So a fantastic resource to use that way.
And you can even take that YouTube link that you make and embed it into your PowerPoint presentation to make things much more streamlined. So lots of different tools and resources there for us to be able to use. And then the last thing, the do. And I think the question, becomes, how do we do in the virtual world? And there are different opportunities, different things you can do. I think mental reps is a huge one that we discussed, in visuals and stuff like that, and getting those mental reps in. But as far as physically clicking or doing things, there's a program called Kahoot. It's an online program. It's free. You can create personalized learning-based games or quizzes or anything like that. And you can make it to where it's set up for you, and you just give your learners a login essentially to be able to make that happen. Mentimeter is another tool that you can use. It's a live Q&A software. They offer a Zoom extension, which I think is really cool, and you can personalize it. It's Q&A, polls, lots of different opportunities to be able to create and get live feedback from your learners if you're doing anything virtually. Yeah, and then they do offer a Zoom extension, but Zoom does offer that as well as far as polls go. Polls are easy, effective. Most of those tools, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, I recapped different tools and resources that are out there as far as Zoom, GoToMeeting.com, WebEx, anything like that. And most of those things, even on the free side of things, they do offer a polling feature. So definitely keep that in mind. And we talked, Jose talked about asking questions to make sure that your learners are obtaining that knowledge that you're trying to pour into them. Well, polls and questions and chats and all those different types of things are a great way to make sure that is happening. Whiteboards. I think the annotate tools and the drawing tools, we have it right here. We can go through, we can put text, we can draw, little pictures, whatever you want to do, and you can turn those tools over to your learners, so that way they can draw. You can use it if you have we've used it in the past on 3 Up 3 Down. We'll discussing wedge theory about a year and some change ago, where to stand, talking about train tracks, making sure we have the ball, the fielder, the runner all in front of us, and where to move along the track, and to make sure we're staying in the appropriate lane. And all of those things are huge tools, and literally erase it right there. Like I said, you can turn those over to your learners as well. Put just a blank slide up and allow people to do those things. That's one opportunity. And then the one of the last things here is the video and discussion. Video and discussion drives participant engagement. I think that's huge. Whenever we give examples and we ask you either in the chat or for people to speak up verbally, people love to jump in, give their 2 cents, and help figure out what's going on, and give their ruling as to why something is the way it is. We talked earlier, and we talked last week, and during the recap, Seth alluded to managing the chat. A group tonight, we have a little bit of a lower turnout, which is fine. We could probably go fair game and let everybody come off mute, but a normal setting for us would be 30 plus participants. We would definitely need to manage a chat. But when you're looking at the video and you're having those open discussions and whatnot, it's going to drive that mental stimulation. People are going to be using their heads, they're going to be thinking, and they're going to be applying what they've learned. And the here and the see. The do is all about application, and the do is all about applying what you've learned and being able to put it into physical form or physical use. So that video and discussion is huge when it comes to the virtual side of things. We also have the breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are going to be huge because it helps you take the large scale conversations and shrink them down to personal level. Like I said, if we have a group of 30 and we want to talk about something a little bit more intimately, we can have 6 breakout rooms and put 5 people in a room. You ask for one person to be, nominated as the captain or the speaker for the group, and all of a sudden you've got 5 or 6 people working together over the course of 3 or 4 minutes. You give them 4 minutes to engage and work well with one another. It makes it a little bit more intimate and a little bit more willing to speak up versus a larger group of people. And then you have tons of different opportunities and ideas coming in a much more structured environment as well, which allows for that collaboration and an overall better presentation for us live viewers, or even those on the replay. They're able to see those things and benefit from that. And then lastly, the choice boards. You can have different subjects up, individualize different options, and it allows for clarification and inquiry on different subjects, and it allows the learner to choose and make decisions, based on what they're interested in currently at that moment, or anything that they're interested in learning in at all. So, those are some different methods and that you can use when we're talking about, how do we engage the virtual learner? Ultimately, the tell and the show are really, really important, but executing a really good do is key in making sure that we can help with that application process. We've all, I'm sure, umpired very many games and seen many pitches. And anytime I'm sure that we've been taught or we've taught others, reps. You're going to get better with reps. You're going to get more consistent with reps. Mental reps are just as important as physical reps. Seth, anything else to add?
No, you hit it all on the head. Fantastic job.
Cool. Jose, you got anything else you want to drop on us before we roll out, dog?
I'm good, man.
Cool. It was good seeing you, man. Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us tonight and listen and talk about how we can engage our virtual learners. And we appreciate all the participation over the last 3 weeks and just talking about setting up virtual learning opportunities throughout the month of November. Just a reminder, next week we are going to be taking the week off, so there will be no 3 Up 3 Down next week, as we're all enjoying the Thanksgiving weekend with our friends and our family. We'll be back strong in December, ready to talk about how to apply some of those things to in-person clinics, and we look forward to seeing you guys then, 8 p.m. Eastern, that first Sunday in December. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we look forward to seeing you all then. Bye, guys.